let's talk about our favorite dead game that has gone through the end of service 10 times by now, shall we? As much as I like playing Wuthering Waves, there has always been one part that I didn't enjoy as much as the gameplay, especially in the beginning, and it is the story. It was fine, I didn't want to bash my head against the wall while trying to finish it, but I noticed that I wasn't that emotionally invested in it for the most part. There are quite a few things that I already like about the story. I like the fact that story quests are on the shorter side and don't take 10 hours of sitting through endless yapping to complete. And the story is actually getting better with every patch. And the cutscenes and facial animations in WuWa are amazing, but there are still some aspects I'd like to talk about. Of course, the story is skippable in WuWa, and it isn't a story-oriented game to begin with, but it doesn't mean that it has to suck in this department. After all, story is an important part of character marketing. The first issue I have with the story is how WuWa introduces characters. With most 5 stars, they give players no time to build up the hype. We usually meet them for the first time on their release patch, and it's nice if they are mentioned by other characters in the story before that, or if they at least appear for a few seconds in the main story. Very often they don't. Zhe, Shanli Yao, Shorekeeper appeared in the story content on their release patch for the first time. Shorekeeper just came out of nowhere, and bam, she's my wife now. How did that happen? Of course I don't mind, but it takes some time to properly hype up characters. When they appear in the story a patch or two before their actual release, or when they are mentioned a lot by other characters before it, it builds up anticipation and it gives players some time to build connection with this character. For example, there are quite a few people in the community waiting in saving pools for Scar and Gasholin. Why? Because they had some time to shine in the story. They have established connections to the world and characters around them, and the story content where they appeared for the first time did not come out on their release patch. The initial interactions got players interested in them, and they want to see more and to get to actually play them. So I think Kuro should introduce characters before their release patch. The second issue has to do with the characters that are technically in-game, but not in the story. Some of them, despite appearing on the screen, don't even get to speak. Like poor old man Yan Wu. Yes, he's a 4-star, but he deserves some respect. Thought she had just a few boring lines of dialogue that I don't even remember. It didn't even show her personality much. Yo, who just hanged out with us for a few minutes before disappearing from the screen for the rest of the quest. She didn't even have the time to show off her personality much. This treatment doesn't only apply to 4 stars. We have Verena, who just quickly helped us out and we never heard about her again. She was only on the background in the story cutscene. Or Jianxin, who just hang out with the rover for a bit. Or Yinlin, who only has her character story and does not appear in the main story at all. Of course, in most gacha games there will always be characters who barely participate in the story. But there are way too many in WuWa. The problem is that these characters don't have time to exist on the screen, to establish their personalities, and to give players something to get attached to. Of course, there are character stories, but you cannot expect people to read through walls of text if they don't already have interest in this character, and the story should provoke this interest. But these episodic characters don't even get the worst treatment, because despite existing in the game, some characters haven't appeared in the story at all, not even as a shadow in the background. Halcaro? Who is that? I've never seen him before. At least this man got a little bit of screen time in the CBT one. Not in the new story though. I waited for him to appear while playing the 1.0 story quest, but he never did. I wanted this character so much, but he was done so damn dirty. Power crept before even appearing in a single story quest. And then Jean also happens to be the type of character I like. A cute girl who has a dark and unhinged side. I'm a big sucker for this character type. I fell in love with her the moment I saw her teaser, but she did not even get a millisecond of screen time. 2 of the characters I happen to like before the release are completely abandoned and forgotten. Kuro, is this personal? The next thing that prevents me from fully enjoying the story is the lack of interactions between the characters, which I hope we'll see more down the line. In the story quests, starting with 1.1, we mainly just hang out with the main 5 stars of the patch, one by one, separately from the others. Of course, gacha games are gooner games, but they lose out on potential world building by not letting characters talk to each other a bit or solve a common problem together. And character interactions don't prevent people from gooning, they certainly don't prevent me. I want to feel like I walk into the world that's already existed before me, that has this web of relationships and interactions that was there before, and that can even determine the way the plot goes. I want to see more character arcs for side characters playing out in the background and adding to the narrative. Of course, character interactions are hard to write, and there is always a risk to devolve into Genshin-style yapping fest. But the source of the yapping is not the character interactions themselves, but the unnecessary lore dumps, reiterating the same point several times and wasting too many words to express something that can be said with just a few. Genshin is especially guilty of that. HSR also has this issue, and let's be honest, the 1.0 story of WuWa is also not the exception. But when WuWa cut back their bullshit, they can actually produce some pretty good emotional moments, built on the characters' connections and interactions. I just wish they reduced their dialogue volume by half. If Core also tried to make their characters more interconnected, showed more interactions between them and maybe some interpersonal conflicts and disagreements, it would help with immersion in the story. And finally, I have an issue with Rover as a character. The story so far has been trying to focus on Rover's journey, which wouldn't be that much of a problem if Rover wasn't so damn overpowered. We aren't that far into the story, but I already can't feel any stakes in the conflicts the game presents. Because Rover is very special, he or she is a person with lots of titles, who has defended and established civilizations in the past, who has founded the Black Shores, who is WuWa's master, the master of a wise ancient being revered by its nation. The main character is this impossibly powerful entity who has defeated many dangerous foes in the past and who, despite losing memories and powers, is still pretty OP. How am I supposed to relate to this character? How am I supposed to worry about them not succeeding? How am I supposed to be interested in the story? I already know that Rover is going to win without too many sacrifices. It's very hard to write an overpowered character into the story as a protagonist, because the protagonist has to struggle and overcome obstacles to make it worthwhile. A story with a weak conflict is a boring story. Therefore, you need to come up with a conflict that can be easily solved with the protagonist's powers. The game so far hasn't presented such conflict. In Jinshi's arc, Rover is the Lord Arbiter, who already has Jue's respect and trust, who definitely has enough power to help Jinshi. In the 1.3 story, Rover is the founder of Black Shores, the person most equipped for solving the problem, and they just find the most optimal solution very quickly, although they couldn't do it for many years before that. Of course, the protagonist always wins in the end, but if they don't experience struggle and losses on the way, the victory feels hollow. And although Rover talks in the story and voices some opinions, they don't really have an interesting personality. They're just very nice and helpful to everyone. They show no emotions about the loss of memories. They don't seem disoriented in the world they don't know well. They don't show any internal conflict about being an ancient, powerful entity, yet having no memory of it. Rover is just stuck in this awkward position between being an actual character with their own motivations and goals and being a blank slate self-insert. The story should just commit to one of these two options. I'd like Rover to be an actual character, but then the writers would have to give them a stronger motivation, more voiced lines in the dialogue, and deeper interactions and connections with other characters. Maybe not always amicable. And they should sideline Rover a bit to give other characters more time to shine. What also annoys me is that, as of now, almost all playable characters are equally nice and friendly to the MC. This is very limiting in my opinion. I would love to see more playable characters who are cold and indifferent to the Rover, or who have a rivalry with them, or who treat the MC as a means to an end, and so on. It would add more variety and satisfy players who prefer different character dynamics. Of course, everyone being very nice might be a Jinzo only thing, because the MC is known here on this land. I hope we'll see a different treatment in other regions. So these are pretty much all changes that I would like to see in the story going forward. Many of the issues I have with the story probably originate from the fact that Kuro rewrote the story for Jinzo arc completely in a very short period of time and had to scrap their initial ideas. So I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with the following regions, and I would like to see a more interesting and captivating narrative. And the story quest starting with 1.1, I hate this, and Yoo-hoo, Yo-ho, Yoo-hoo, and Yo-hoo, Yo-ho, Yo-ho, Yoo-hoo, and Yo-ho, and Yoo-hoo.